Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ira J. Ackery, your host for All Hands on Deck. So glad to meet you again here in the studio as we are having a very special guest with us on today, Pastor Paul Jakes, a former mayoral candidate. And he's here today in the studio. He's the pastor of the New Tabernacle of Faith Baptist Church, and he's also the president of the Christian Council on Urban Affairs. Pastor Jakes, welcome.
Thank
to
you.
All Hands on Deck.
Pleasure to meet with you, Reverend Ira Ackery,
You almost forgot my name, huh?
that I've known for a long time, and just honored to be with you on the show today.
Thank you so much. Listen, we're so excited to have you here today, and we just want to talk a little local politics. We know already that you are a big advocate and supporter for Danny Davis. We're going to give you a little time to talk about Danny K. Davis. We're going to give you a little time to talk about Danny K. Davis and this run that he's engaged in. We want to hear from you. Come on, talk about it.
Well, let me first of all say that Danny Davis is a deacon. Danny Davis is a husband. He's a father. He's one who is a legislator who has really done a marvelous job. The Second Chance Act was one of the bills that he got passed. He was a champion on health care and education. Even now, the program that has been presented to Congress in dealing with the issue of helping young people that are incarcerated in jails, that these individuals can, with his help and Congress passing it, will not have to deal with having to put bail up for non-violent crimes that they might have been involved in. And so that's some legislation that will reduce the population of those behind prison bars. And this is just a few of the things that he's been a champion on. And recently, Congressman Davis just had an education summit along with the other black elected officials over at Malcolm X College that was just awesome.
You and I have been supporters of Congressman Davis for a very long time.
Absolutely.
I know the reasons for my support and my affinity with him, but I'd like for you to share with the enormous audience today who's tuning in why you put your support and your influence behind him for so many years.
Well, for so many years, Congressman Davis has been an independent voice for the voiceless, and he has done everything that he can to fight in the areas that I've mentioned. But not only that, he recently had a loss of his grandson, where his grandson was shot, and Danny Davis, respectfully, Congressman Davis, has done everything he can to help with the 10, 20, 30 plan that would give 10% of the resources of the federal government to communities that have suffered for over 20 years and need some relief. And this is just some remarkable things that he has been able to put together legislatively. But he has just been consistent. He has never given in and never given up. As many might remember, he was a part of Harold Washington's crew, the
Absolutely.
team that stood up against the 29, and he's still doing the same thing. And
He was part of 29. Verdolia 29, and he was one of the 21. That's right.
That's right. That's right. He stood up and fought, and he's just that type of a person that really is on the case, and I just want to commend him for being able to stand during this difficult time. But he's on the case.
You ran for mayor before. Can you tell us about that experience? You know, many people always wanted to know, how did your life change after that election?
Well, I think everybody should run for public office at least once in their lifetime, and I had that experience. It allowed me to certainly speak to many various issues, but also to learn Chicago and to learn how to be able to help other candidates. So it was a great experience, and a matter of fact, I was a runner-up. So
That's right.
That was good.
You run up.
I was a
gave
runner
me second place.
Yeah, I sure did.
Don't tell them how many people ran, though. Okay?
All right.
Listen, we have a caller. Caller, welcome to All Hands on Deck.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the politicians ain't doing enough, and I think because the reason I said that because first of all, my name is James. The reason I said they ain't doing enough because all the violence and they just want people to vote for them, and then every time when they vote, people vote for them, and they gonna stop all this, and they keep on. And then the media, the politicians, and the media part of it, and the police, and Eddie Johnson ain't doing nothing. When he always cut front of the media, always talk about he gonna stop getting all the guns off the street. And then what do you hear? More violence, and Eddie Johnson part of the problem. My name is James.
Thank you, James, for calling.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know many people are very frustrated with the Republican Party, with the Democratic Party.
You got that right.
And even the Independent Party, and we do need a different peel.
And there's a lot of disdain and ill feelings about incumbents. So that's why every incumbent is being challenged. It's amazing to me that even Congressman Danny Davis, after all of these years, he's been challenged.
Yes, sure.
Richard Boykin, only been in office 4 years, he's been challenged. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody's been challenged. Caller, welcome to the show. You're on All Hands on Deck. My special guest today is Paul Jakes.
Yes, my name is Ray, and I call every week because it's a great show.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to put politics aside and ask the great young man next to you. Why is it that years ago you used to be able to go to your pastor's home if you had troubles, but now you can't? And I'll tell you why. Because they all live in a suburb, or 3/4 of them live in a suburb. And I want to ask Mr. McNair, does he live in the suburbs? Because now they come here every week to collect money, and then they take it out to the suburbs. That's not being right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that question. The gentleman on the other end says his criticism of some ministers, the fact that they don't live in our community, and they drive all the way in from the suburbs to collect a check and to pass the plate, and that he resents that. Talk to me.
Well, let me just say that there's a great number of pastors who work and live in the city of Chicago, more than those that are outside. And you really can't determine where a person lives, but you can certainly call for the credibility of their heart and the service of their ministry. And I think that the only way that we can do that is to become a member of their churches and to voice our concerns. Being outside of the church does not allow you to do that. So I recommend that you go and join that preacher's church that you're referring to, become an active
Well, actually,
member.
he's not talking about a preacher. That's a criticism that some people do have of our profession, our vocation. Now, honestly, I must tell you, I've been a pastor in this community for 28 years, and I remember when I moved out to Plainfield for 2 years, there was an element of within myself that made me feel kind of hypocritical to hold a press conference and to attack a mayor who had no jurisdiction over me. Attack a state representative or alderman that I was not even under. Ultimately, I moved back into the city limits, and I'm on the west side now. I guess this brother is saying if you pastor church, you got to suffer. And I don't know if that's what God is really saying.
Yeah.
I personally believe that pastors should not be carpetbaggers. I believe if you don't live in that neighborhood, that does not mean you cannot serve that neighborhood, but it does limit your voice. That's what I really believe. Thank you so much for that comment. You're on All Hands on Deck with Ira J. Ackery and the one and only Pastor Paul Jakes. He's also a host of a show here at CAN TV. Tell us about
Love in Action with the Reverend Paul Jakes. And it is certainly a show that deals with social issues, and we welcome you to tune in.
What day? What time?
We tape on Fridays, and whenever it comes on, it's just online. I don't actually have the date, but please just keep looking out for
Sure
it.
thing. Now, also, I've noticed that you have chosen your candidate
I certainly have.
for governor.
I certainly
You
have.
are pushing for
Chris Kennedy.
Chris Kennedy is the choice for this pastor. Chris Kennedy, we were with him today. And it was just so awesome to see so many of the clergy speak on his behalf.
Absolutely. Matter of
Why do
fact,
people believe in him?
well, I think they believe in him based on the legacy of the Kennedy family.
No, now I got to play the devil's advocate.
Okay.
You are voting for him because he's a Kennedy?
I'm voting for him because he has already expressed the same life and commitment to the people.
All right.
You know, remember John Kennedy made the statement, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. And
Yeah, what's the difference between him and J.B. Pritzker? Those are the two big names.
well, I think the difference is, number one, you did not hear Chris Kennedy on a phone call 10 years ago saying the things that were very disparaging, very controversial about many of the leaders in our African American community. I think that it was a shame that JB 10 years ago actually talked about Emil Jones, former president of the Senate, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, former pastor of Trinity, talked about Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., talked about just another cadre of many
But
cadre
you-
other leaders.
Now, the funny part about it, the Jacksons, it looks like Jonathan Jackson is still supporting him, even though he threw his brother under the bus.
You know, I hope that he will come home, and I think that he eventually will. I hope that his father does give support to Mr. Kennedy. I believe that he has, and he's been talking to Mr. Kennedy, and so we hope that things will happen for the Jackson family to support Mr. Kennedy's candidacy, and even if it's not in the primary, in the general.
312-738-1060. Give us a call and let's talk about what's going on. There is a big election. There's a big election that's going to take place.
March 20th.
Yes, it is. And you can also early vote right now. In fact, I think I'm going to early vote this week.
Yes, sir.
I need some tips on who to vote for. Somebody needs some tips on. You're going to vote for Congressman Danny Davis. You're going to vote for.
Yes, Chris
Kennedy.
Kennedy, Rod Joy.
And
who
there's
is
a
his
president race in the Cook County Board.
Yes, indeed.
That's a big race.
It's a very
That's a big race.
Yeah, big race. I'm going to vote for Richard Boykin.
No, the president of the board.
Yeah.
That's between. No, Boykin ain't running for that.
No. Richard is running for Cook County Commissioner to retain his position. I'm voting for Deere as well.
That's a kind of shameful that people are trying to unseat this man because he's been an independent voice. Mm-hmm. There is a price to pay for independence when you want to run for office. They used to try to get me to run for office, and I didn't run because I wanted to just be able to write a check for $100,000 and buy my own staff and buy my own campaign literature because I don't want to bow to nobody. My boss is the Lord.
Yeah,
That's who my boss is.
Yes, sir.
And that's
yes.
why I never really ran, because the people that give you money, they want you to be beholden unto them.
Most definitely. Most
And Richard has been speaking up. Richard has been fighting, and now the unions have all come together to support his opponent.
Well,
Unfortunate.
well, he has an opportunity to show them and to show the rest of the community that he is as committed as he says. And he has voted right. He has given of himself in so many areas, even the pop tax. He came up with some solutions rather than continuing to send business outside of the district. He said, let the businesses remain and let us remain getting the business. So I think Richard Boykin is one who deserves to get reelected, and not saying that his opponent isn't a fine person. I know Mr. Johnson very well.
Nice guy.
And
But he's running for the wrong position. He's an advocate for teachers. He's an advocate for CTU. The Board of Commissioners in Cook County has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the school system. The Cook County Board of Commissioners did not close not one of those 50 schools. But the City Council, they supported Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Johnson, if you're watching, why don't you run for alderman? Come on, friend. So you made the case. You made the case. 312-738-1060. It's a big election. And why does voting really matter?
voting matters.
I think that's a good time to get your little spiel in.
Yeah,
Black History Month,
For African Americans, we have suffered quite a bit. And if we remember that we have had to come from the point where people had to say how many bubbles were in a bar of soap or how many marbles were in a jar in order to be able to vote. And this really was a shame. It was a violation of our constitutional rights. And eventually, this was overturned with that type of rhetoric. And so African Americans were given this opportunity. Thank goodness for people such as Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers and others who had fought for us to be able to write, fought and died. And so this is now our time to continue to stand tall, to do everything that we can in order to be able to get people elected that would look out for our best interests.
Absolutely. 312-738-1060. Also, there's another big election I mentioned earlier. Toni Preckwinkle. In fact, she came by church Sunday. Toni Preckwinkle and Bob Fioretti. That's another real interesting election.
Former alderman. Matter of fact, I was with both of them in church on Sunday over at St. Paul Church of God in Christ, and both of them were campaigning for votes and support. And it was kind of strange being in between both of them. You know?
Did one of them convince you to vote the other way, or their way?
Both of them are. Toni kissed me, and Bob
It made the difference, didn't it?
Bob shook my hand and embraced me, and I'm just at this point, just like many others, trying to really just determine which way to go. And we haven't made that decision, but I surely will when I get behind that booth.
All right,
And
all right.
punch that vote.
You heard it here. Any of you that are in Toni Preckwinkle's camp, any of you that are in Bob Fioretti's camp, we have a big fish that still has not been caught. And so you better call this great orator, this great speaker, and get him on board. All right. Listen, Cook County Tax Assessor Barrios is under the gun. He is over a broken system. A report came out that the system favors the rich. It's slanted in favor of the rich, and it's very regressive. The system is broken, and many people are calling for Joe Barrios' resignation. They're calling for his resignation. And there's a gentleman in Oak Park who claims to bring equity and justice and fairness, rather, to the way that we assess the tax value of buildings. His name is Fritz Kagi. And I believe that he should be the one to get an opportunity, but a stalking horse has entered into the play, and that's Andrea Rayla. And she's been kicked off the ballots, but because she's in the process of appealing, they had to put her name back on the ballot, although her votes may not count. How do we educate people not to vote for her? Because why waste a vote? They should either be voting for Barrios or Kagi, the only two real candidates.
Well, all I can say is that everyone has a right to run and either win or lose.
But my thing is this: if you get kicked off the ballot, you don't have a right to run. If you get kicked off the ballot, get out of Dodge.
Yeah, you can't run if you're not owned. So I agree with you there. And so at this point, I am very much leaning toward Fritz Kagi.
Why's that? Why's that?
Well,
312-738-1060. You got time for another call? But go ahead.
Good. Well, I from what I have seen, he presents a solution to much of the tax ills that have been affecting our communities. It appears, based on the research, that Barrios has given more credence to the rich rather than to the poor, and has overtaxed the poor and has given more breaks to the rich. That is something that none of us can stand and should vote against. So this is our opportunity to vote and to be able to make our voices heard. So I would certainly recommend Fritz Kagi as Cook County Assessor in the upcoming election.
Very good, very good. Let me pause here for a minute and let Chicago know that tomorrow at our church, where I serve as the pastor and where I'm also the head of the Austin Empowerment Coalition, that between the hours of 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Chicago Cook Workforce Development will be on the facilities. If you're looking for job leads, be there at 1256 North Waller Avenue. We're out here trying to make the case. We're out here trying to get jobs. Even if you're not where you should be with your skill set, you can get turned on to places where they're training. You can also get your resume help. You can get interview coaching. You can get resume preparation. You can get all of that. We're in partnership with American Job Center, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Tell everybody you know. If you really are concerned about the violence, the way you fight violence was with a job. Tell somebody who's not working that we'll be at 1256 North Waller Avenue, 9 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. And don't be coming in at 1:15 talking about, I thought y'all was here to 1. The early bird gets the worm, baby.
I want to commend you, Pastor Ackrey, for your work in the community. So many people need job opportunities, and this is now a time that they can go to their local church and be able to find information, not only just a way to get to heaven, but how to live here on earth.
You got that right.
Yes.
Thank you for those powerful closing remarks, because the Bible that I read, it just does not talk about getting to heaven, but you ought to be able to enjoy the trip. See you next week, same time, same place, here at CAN TV, All Hands on Deck. See you next week.
Thank you for this opportunity.